Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 836B, and today's date is December 7th, 2015, and the title of the episode is Obama is pushing the authorization for war, not against the Islamic State, but Russia. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, ever since the false flag event in Paris, we see that France has been pushing draconian laws, basically becoming a dictatorship, taking the rights away from the people. And we saw this happen in many other countries like Australia, Canada, the US. And we can see this is spreading all across the globe because what's happening is the system is coming down, and what governments normally do when systems are collapsing, they need all the power. They need to take the power away from the people and bring it to them. This way they can control the people. And another part of it is to get rid of the weapons to make it easier to control the people. And right now in France, we see law enforcement, they want to have several powers added to a proposed law, including the move to forbid and block the use of Tor anonymity network. And basically, they want to forbid free Wi-Fi. And the document talks about two proposed pieces of legislation, one around the state of emergency and the other concerning counterterrorism. And what they want to do is basically shut down Wi-Fi when there is some type of state of an emergency, just like the false flag event in Paris. This way they can cut off all the pictures being transmitted. They can stop everyone broadcasting on social media. This way they can keep the narrative of the story and control the population. And it also controls what people can or cannot see. And we know that here in the United States, they would like to implement the same exact thing. And in some respects, they do have it. They have the kill switch. They shut down the cell towers. And they would love to shut down the free Wi-Fi at a moment's notice, and which they most likely already do. And we can see right now, they're doing whatever they possibly can to control the population. One of the other things they'd like to do is basically get rid of encryption. Here in the United States, we understand this is one of the main focuses, is to get rid of the encryption so they can read people's emails, read their private information. And this has been very tough for the U.S. government because a lot of the companies are fighting back. A lot of companies have already given in. This is why they're trying to pass CISA, because it will relieve them of liability. And I think if they can get that law passed, which most likely they'll have some type of an event to push it through, the companies will say, okay, we give. As long as we're not liable, you can have all this information. We don't need encryption. And we can see we're definitely heading this way. And this is why every single person needs to protect their private information. You protect your belongings in your house. You leave your house. You don't leave it open. You lock it down. You don't give a copy of the keys to the government. You lock your car when you're going into a supermarket or at work. You don't give your combination to your safe out. You don't give your bank account numbers out. Why would you want to give any of this information to the government at this point? There's no reason for it. This is why you need to use some type of encrypted email. This is why you need to use like startpage.com. That's startpage.com. It will hide your searches. You can also use the proxy portion of it. We will hide your location. Now, sometimes the websites don't come up fully, but you're going to need to work around that. But it will protect you. You can use a product like blockitpocket.com, which is a sleeve that you can slip your credit cards, because a lot of these credit cards now come with the little chip on them. And anyone with a scanner that's walking by can pick up your information. This will block the signal because the sleeves have copper, silver interwoven into the fabric to block this. You can also slip your cell phone, your iPad into these sleeves. It will block the signal so you're not tracked. And a lot of these things you can get very inexpensive today. There's holiday discounts all over the place right now, and it's very inexpensive to do. And it only, what is it? You're just slipping something into a sleeve and you're protected. You're using startpage.com. You're not tracked. And there's many other free things that you can use out there to protect you. And everyone needs to start doing this to show the government, listen, we reject you spying on us, and we're supporting our rights, our Fourth Amendment. You are not allowed to spy on us. You can also use Pi encrypt, which I have on my site. Someone developed it, where you can encrypt your text and give the key to someone else, so just you two can read it. And it's on the right-hand sidebar. It's completely free. It's open source, and you can take a look at that. Now, out in Ukraine, we know they are pushing for a major some type of false flag to start the offensive. Now, Vice President Joe Biden was in Kiev, and he says the U.S. remains committed to Ukraine, and it demands Russia to adhere to the Minsk II ceasefire agreement. And they want Russia to hand back Crimea to Kiev. Very interesting, because we just had a false flag where Kiev took out the power to Crimea, put it into darkness, wouldn't repair the infrastructure to reconnect to power, and they're continually shelling in the Donetsk and Lugansk area. They have moved a lot of their military assets already up to the contact line, and we are hearing reports now they're moving military assets up to Crimea. Very interesting. And Biden went out to say that the invasion by Russia of Crimea will not be accepted by us or by the international community. This tells you already they are prepared and ready to make their move. Now, we're most likely going to see some type of false flag event, which they will blame on the southeastern people, Crimea, or Russia. And we know the Minsk II ceasefire agreement expires the end of this year, and we only have a couple weeks left. Kiev has made no mention of renewing it. We know the U.S. and other forces from other areas like UK, Poland, Spain, they're in Ukraine training the National Guard, training the Army, training the special op teams, bringing in lethal weapons, bringing in defensive weapons. They're prepared now. This is the message they're putting out there. They are ready to go, ready to make an offensive and take back Crimea and take back the southeastern area. Of course, this whole thing now is moving into a full-fledged world war, because the U.S. will be fighting Russia in Syria, most likely fighting China, fighting Russia in Ukraine, fighting China in the Pacific, along with many other countries. And they're going to do this on all fronts. Right now, Libya's oil industry is completely slipping into chaos, and what they mean by that is the elected government has full control of shipping the oil, and right now they're selling the oil not using the dollar. Now, the puppet government tried to move the central bank and try to have the countries come to the new location of where the central bank is located to sell the oil, but the countries are only dealing with the elected government in Tripoli. And they cannot have this, the central bankers. They need to have control. So right now, they're trying to put together this peace deal. The elected government shunned the UN peace deal. They said, we're not going with this because this relieves us of all our powers and gives it all over to the puppet government. And they are looking at a separate deal. Now, will this go through? Most likely not, because no matter what deal they're going to put together, the puppet government, the U.S.-controlled government, wants full control. And the elected government is not going to hand this over. Now, we have a little bit of propaganda coming out of Libya, and we mentioned this before, where the Islamic State is learning how to fly planes. Not jet fighters, but small planes, propeller planes. And the reason why they're coming out with this is saying that where they're training in Sirte in Libya is very close to Italy. Now, by what I'm seeing here, it might be that they're getting ready to have some type of false flag in Italy to bring them into the mix, to bring them into the major fight. They want all European countries in this fight, and it looks like they're making their move. Now, out in Yemen, we understand that the Houthis are fighting Saudi Arabia, which is the proxy army for the United States government. And of course, wherever the Islamic State is, that's where the United States is going to say they're going to need the authorization for war to go into these countries. So right now we have the Islamic State in Yemen, in Libya, in Lebanon, in Iraq, and Syria. Very interesting. Now in Yemen, this is coming out of Site Intelligence, which we know is owned by Rita Katz, which is a propaganda mouthpiece for Israel and the United States. And they're saying that the Islamic State is in Yemen and they killed the governor. Aden's governor. Now, how convenient and how this whole scenario completely benefits the puppet government and the U.S. It's amazing how the Islamic State does everything to help out the U.S., Israel, and the puppet government for Yemen. And of course, the Islamic State is the proxy army for the United States government central bankers. And they took out the governor. That's basically what happened there. Now, in Iraq, we see Erdogan has sent about 150 troops and 2 dozen tanks to Bashakwa, just northeast of Mosul, in a move that has basically pissed off Baghdad. They're saying this is an invasion. And right now the Prime Minister is saying we've given Turkey 48 hours to get the troops out of Iraq, or else. And it looks like Baghdad says, listen, if they don't move out, we will attack them. We will attack the U.S. We didn't ask the U.S. to be in here. And they're looking towards Russia and China to help support them. Countries now are taking sides. The war is on. And it's going to accelerate as we head into 2016. Now, ever since the downing of the Su-24 by Turkey, which was the Russian jet, which they basically blew out of the sky, Turkey, under the direction of the U.S., is trying to push World War III. And right now, Turkey is looking to close the Bosphorus Strait, and this would cut off Moscow's key supply line to Latakia, which is in Syria. And also, it would block the ships from coming into the Black Sea to get to Crimea, because we understand the U.S. government and the Kiev government are working on plans to basically push another offensive there. And by blocking the Bosphorus, they killed 2 birds with 1 stone, where they block all movement in and out of the Black Sea. And under the Montreux Convention of 1936, in times of war, the passage of warships shall be left entirely to the discretion of the Turkish government. But we are not at war right now. So Turkey had to make something up. And right now they said, there's a Russian soldier on the deck of one of the ships holding a manpad. Now, I have the picture here on the X22Report.com site. There's a Russian soldier, allegedly a Russian soldier in uniform, and then there's a man in black. Well, there's a shadow there, and it looks like he has a long coat on. Doesn't look like he has a helmet on, holding a manpad, and it looks kind of out of place, and it kind of looks photoshopped. And it looks like they might be using this to basically stop the Russian ships from moving in and out of the Black Sea. Now, Putin is saying that the U.S. was completely involved in the oil convoys, completely involved in the oil cover-up, and Russia delivered a lengthy presentation which contained, visual evidence of the connection between the Islamic State bringing the oil in from Iraq and Syria, showing the routes they use, showing the convoys of trucks on October 18th. They have satellite images revealing 1,772 oil trucks going from Syria right into Turkey. November 14th, they're showing more of these trucks. November 28th, they're showing the trucks heading to the oil refinery in Karacho, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and they can see 50 oil trucks loading up oil there. And these routes go from basically Syria and Iraq into Turkey. And of course the US is saying, no, this can't be true. This is really not a big deal. It's not a big deal whatsoever, and don't even worry about it. Well, they're saying that because this funds the entire proxy army. And the US and Turkey have been caught. And they're trying to weasel their way out of this. More evidence is coming out that the Islamic State basically regularly sells crude it obtains from Iraq and Syria through some Qatari middlemen. And we can see all of this whole thing is starting to fall apart. Now, Iran says they have other evidence that shows that, yes, the U.S., Turkey are involved in this. So basically, they're stealing oil, and it does make sense because basically what they've done is they've held, the Islamic State, have held the oil refineries both in Syria and Iraq, and the U.S. continually bombs around that area to keep other people out of that area. Now we're getting reports that the U.S. is training thousands upon thousands of soldiers in Jordan, getting ready to move into southern Syria, to create an infiltration zone to basically go into Syria and get Assad out. We're seeing that things are in the works right now. Everything is starting to escalate. We see the U.S. has special op teams inside of Iraq and Syria. Germany has the same. France is bombing. The UK is bombing. France wants to bring in ground troops. All of this is getting prepared for the major offensive. And most likely this is going to go live in Ukraine and in Syria at the same time. Right now the U.S. is saying they are running out of bombs. They don't have enough to replace them. The munition depot stocks are below desired objectives. So they want you, the everyday person, to flip the bill for more, so the central bankers can really push this war forward. Now, Syria is saying that the U.S.-led coalition is now hitting their armed forces. According to a military source from the Syrian Arab Army 104th Airborne Brigade of the Republican Guard, U.S. warplanes struck the military camp. And basically, Assad is saying, okay, now they're coming after the armed forces. Before they were blowing up the infrastructure, blowing up grain silos, taking out the electrical grid. But now they're blatantly hitting the armed forces of Syria. And he's saying that this is an act of aggression. And he's absolutely right. Remember, Russia was invited into Syria. The US, UK, Germany, France, and the other Arab nations were not invited in. They invaded a sovereign country. And we can see that Putin right now, he is supplying Syria with S-300 air defense systems. And he's saying, you know what? Place these throughout your country wherever you want so you can defend yourself. Right now, Russia has their missile destroyer out in sea with the S-400s. And basically, they're going to have a complete no-fly zone over the entire area. And the U.S. and the coalition forces understand this. They're nervous about even bringing airplanes into this region. And now that Syria has control of this, this is going to be a problem. And they can't use the excuse, well, they don't have the right to defend themselves, because they use this excuse for every country that they've taken over. Well, they have a right to defend themselves. Well, so does Syria. Now, we know that the authorization for war is pending in Congress because of the San Bernardino terror false flag. Obama is making a plea to Congress to pass the authorization for war. Now, this is not going to be against the Islamic State, even though it says that they can go after the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, or any other terrorist group in any country they want. This is really to bring troops into this area to fight Russia. And they're pushing. They want to see if they get traction from this last event. And how much traction is it going to get? Probably not a lot. So what we're going to see is we're going to see many more false flag events. Just this past weekend, we saw a London man wielding a machete screaming, "This is for Syria." This is another false flag event to make everyone think that people from Syria are, coming out of Syria and they're attacking people. Now, of course, they couldn't use a weapon because guns are banned in London. They have very strict gun laws. So they used a machete. Yeah, machetes can kill people. But again, this was a false flag event to convince everyone that, oh my God, terrorism is coming to the UK. Terrorism is coming to France. Terrorism is coming to Belgium. Terrorism is coming to Australia, Canada, and the US. Now, in San Bernardino, we understand this whole entire thing is a complete false flag. They opened up the home. The landlord used a crowbar. Of course, as we know with apartment buildings, most landlords have keys. Why did they have to use a crowbar? It makes no sense whatsoever. But this was against the law. The crime scene was still going on. There was no police tape, which tells us there was really no crime whatsoever. And the reporters came in, touched everything, made sure they showed the passports, and kind of messed up all the evidence. So if something basically exonerates the couple, they can say it was planted there and everything is completely messed up. And this is what they wanted to happen. Now, what's very interesting about this is there are two pictures out that show the black SUV all shot up. And they're in two different locations. Now, I have the picture on the X22Report.com site, and you can also see it on YouTube. And we see one with a white picket fence, and we see one with a traffic light and a row of trees. But what gives it away is look at the street. Look at the dashed lines. They are completely different. Now, they already have all the markers down of where the shooting took place. And what did they do? Move the truck to a different location? It makes no sense. And we can see already the whole thing was completely staged. It was in two different locations. And there's also eyewitnesses out there saying that, yeah, there were three tall white men dressed in basically military gear. And again, we have to remember what happened to the third shooter. If you notice, it just went away. Just like the other shooters in Sandy Hook and all the other false flag events. And they were wearing black cargo pants. And one of the pictures shows Farouk laying down in shorts with his hands handcuffed. And the attorneys are saying that the couple was found in the truck face down, handcuffed. If they're handcuffed, how were they shooting? So basically, it looks like this was moved to another area. They were already dead, and this whole thing was planted. Plus, the wife, she was like 90 pounds. There was no way that she was carrying the weapons, shooting all this up, especially when witnesses are saying it was three tall white men. Plus, there's evidence now saying that she was posting to Facebook that she supports the Islamic State during the shooting. But again, this wasn't her Facebook. It was someone else's. So the whole thing is a complete setup. Now, if you believe the official story about what Obama and the rest of the government is trying to tell us, these extreme gun control laws didn't work in California. Because, surprise, the gun control that Obama wants to put forth is already in California. Universal background checks, registration for firearms, extreme limits on concealed carry permits, lead ammunition bans, requirement to have a license of any firearm, waiting periods for a purchase, gun bans, magazine bans, limits on magazine capacity. It's all there, if you believe the official story. But now we're getting word that these weapons were planted. One of them was a weapon from the police. It's being tracked back there. So it's starting to look like this whole thing is a complete hoax. And especially there was a drill going on at the same time. And remember, Obama is out there saying that anyone on the no-fly list should be banned from owning a weapon. I'm sorry, but we don't know how to get on we don't know how people get on the no-fly list. We don't know how people get off the no-fly list. And owning a weapon is my right. Flying is really not a right. So you can't compare the two. And basically, right now, under the constitutional rights, yes, you have the right to travel anywhere, but it's not really a right to fly a plane, because you can then take a car, you can walk, you can take a bus, you can take any other ways of transporting yourself to other different areas. So we have the right to own a weapon. It's not for hunting. It's not for target shooting, which is good to do anyhow, because it's good to get better at shooting. But we have the right to own a weapon, so the government, when it becomes tyrannical, it can't control the people. And we all have the right to keep and bear arms. And banning guns does not reduce crime. Crime goes up when the law-abiding citizen is disarmed. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. It's not about target shooting. It's about giving the government good reason to leave the citizen alone. An armed man or woman is a citizen. An unarmed man or woman is a subject. Gun control is not about guns. It's about control. Free men and women do not ask permission to bear arms. Those who trade liberty for security have neither. Founding fathers. The Second Amendment is in place in case the politicians ignore the others. 65 million firearm owners killed no one yesterday, or the day before, or the day before that. When you remove the people's right to bear arms, you create slaves. The American Revolution would never have happened with gun control. Actually, the American Revolution started with the British attempt at gun control. So already the Department of Homeland Security is rethinking how they're going to work with global terrorist threats. So they're creating this new terror alert system, because the other one worked so well. Actually, they couldn't report any terror because most of the time it was an inside job. It was a false flag. And they never used a terror warning system because there are no terrorists. They didn't use it for Boston bombs, San Bernardino, nothing. So you know this is all complete fake, phony, and false. And we can see already they're putting out all these warnings about the Islamic State coming to the United States, that scientists are set to wage chemical and biological war here in the US, in the EU, in the UK, and they are preparing for the next false flag event. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.